Okay, I'd like to call an North Aurora Committee of the whole meeting for Monday, July 20th, 2026 to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Gravino.
Here.
Trustee Christensen.
Here.
Trustee Curtis.
Here.
Trustee Gately.
Here.
Trustee Lowry.
Here.
Trustee Salazar.
Here.
Thank you. Audience comments? Trustee comments? Item 1 of discussion, Steve?
Thank you. Item number 1 under discussion tonight is vehicle seizure and impoundment code update. So I'd like to start with saying that we currently have a seizure and impoundment of vehicles section of our municipal code. This is an update. And the reason we are doing this update is because we're seeing an uptick in the amount of vehicles that we're seizing under a provision known as Article 36. These types of seizures are done for reasons such as DUIs, burglaries, people who are aggravating, fleeing, and eluding police officers from traffic stops, and aggravated discharges. And one of the things that Deputy Chief Gorski might touch on later is one of the upticks we've seen is things like the driver takeovers of areas. And then what happens are when the police come to find the driver, they flee. And then once they elude the officers and leave town, we don't have a lot of recourse. So it's not a very good discouragement if people are able to just constantly just flee the area as soon as police come there. But with Article 36, one of the things that we can do and we have been doing is been using our ability to then track the vehicle and figure out where, who the owner of that vehicle is that flee and eluded. And then we can actually seize the vehicle if it reaches a aggravated stature with the state. So with that, one of the things that we're running into is throughout the years, like I said before, we've had this ongoing for a long period of time. But what happens is when a tow company comes to seize a vehicle and it takes it back to the lot, if their lot is full, they have to drop the car off at somewhere that's secured. So they typically drop it off at the police station. The difference is this, to go through Article 36, it takes sometimes 3 to 6 months to seize a vehicle. And that's only if the state's attorney's office in Kent County will approve the charges to seize the vehicle. So it's not happening all the time. I don't want to make it sound like it's happening all the time. But we currently have a few vehicles that have been sitting for months at the police department taking up space. And as one of our Deputy Chief Quinn mentioned in a meeting today, there's a uneven standard. So if your car gets seized and it's taken to a tow lot, you have to pay the tow company impoundment fees. If that lot is full, just by luck, you get taken to the police department and there's no fee. But we end up with the car in our lot for 6 months at a time, taking up spots that we have for other things that we need. So what the police want to do is change the code to charge an impoundment fee of $50 a day, which is in line with what the tow companies charge. And it's in line with our lowest fine that we charge in our vehicle code, which is $50 per occurrence. And what they would like to do is then once we have this, it would just basically be an impoundment fee of $50 a day. If it adds up to a large number at their towing hearing where they meet with our public hearing officer, the hearing officer can reduce or remove that if it's considered excessive in any way. So I just want to make sure that that's in there as well. But this would just essentially change it so that we would now be charging $50 a night per your vehicle, just like a tow company would. If you have any questions about the practice of Article 36 seizures or anything, Deputy Chief Gorski is available to answer any questions you might have.
$50 a day is $1,500 a month. And if we're holding on to this car for 6 months, what do we do if the value of the vehicle is not even worth the total fee? So we're out on both ends.
So the Article 36, and Joe can step in, typically when you seize the vehicle, the village ends up getting that vehicle and then selling it at auction. So the village really isn't out any money. Once we seize the vehicle, we make the money off the auction of that vehicle plus the impoundment fees.
But how are they paying the impoundment fees? Like, let's say 6 months. So that's, let's say $9,000. And what if we only sell the car for 2 or 3? Are we going after the owner for the balance?
Oh, you're okay. That's what you're saying. Because what I was saying is that you get the value of the vehicle, right? So put it this way, the village right now is getting $0. But once we sell the car and we get $2,000, that goes to the village and it goes into a special fund for police activities that we can use for certain types of things. Then you're saying that what if we don't get paid the impoundment fees? Is that what you're asking? Okay. So then I typically, Joe, I don't remember if there's a lien process through.
So ultimately, with Article 36 seizures, it's kind of a net gain for the village. We're not out any money if we store them in our PD lot, but it gives us another tool where if the courts award the vehicle back and we have to hold that vehicle for 6 months, it does allow the owner to compensate us for hanging onto that vehicle for that amount of time. However, if that vehicle is awarded to us as part of the Article 36 seizure, the state police is the one who actually facilitates the auction and then the money being returned back into our Article 36 fund. So either way, if we lose, more than likely with the $50 a day fee, it would be comped in the event that we are holding the vehicle and it's being returned to the owner.
And so to your question too, it would be similar to any fine that we have with anybody who can't pay the fine right away. I mean, there's procedures for that. If you have, let's say, a code violation and the code violation is $10,000 over, 5 years worth of violations, it goes through a process, an adjudication hearing process. And then in that process, we can set things like the payment plan and whatnot. And if they don't pay it, then you go through the courts.
Well, right now, we're not getting anything on the vehicles and they're taking up space. So this gives us some leverage to charge people who are, that owe us for parking their vehicle or for season. And so I'm good. I think it's an excellent thing to do.
Anybody else?
I'm in favor of it.
No problem. Anything else for us, Steve, on that one?
Nope, that's it.
Good. All right, move on to item 2.
Okay. Okay, item number 2 is a bodywork license regulation ordinance. So as we have it right now in our code, bodyworks establishments, which are essentially the most predominant of what we would consider bodywork establishments, would be a massage parlor. When we rezoned them a few years ago, they are now a special use in certain districts. But beyond the special use of zoning, the issue is, one, we have an existing parlor that was in before it became a special use, so there's no special use governing that property. And 2, even if someone comes in under a special use under zoning, zoning can only do so much to enforce rules. And it's a process to actually revoke somebody's special use. This becomes what is a non-home rule versus home rule issue, essentially. Home rule communities typically have the power to license businesses. Non-home rule communities don't typically have the power to license businesses. However, in certain circumstances, including massage parlors, they can be deemed a nuisance by the state, in which case our powers as a non-home rule authority then are allowed to license them. So massage parlors very specifically fall in a category that the state also has deemed a nuisance category. And because it's a nuisance, it allows non-home rule entities to establish a licensing program. We don't have a licensing program yet. So this ordinance basically establishes a licensing program. And so this is also based on some of the feedback we had and concerns. We have a current massage parlor. As you know, we had another one apply. And while that one was applying, we had another one trying to apply. So some towns are cracking down on massage parlors, and it's leading other massage parlors to find towns that don't have regulations. So a little bit of background. As I said earlier, we have the one massage parlor, and then we have a second massage establishment on the west side of town, Massage MB. So that's more of a chain. The village does not license establishes. And just as a reminder, all massage therapists that work at these facilities are to be licensed by the state of Illinois. So this regulation, this ordinance does not supersede anything the state requires. This is an addition to what the state requires, because we cannot preempt the state, and we want the state to still license these things. We just want to add our provisions to protect the community here. So as I said earlier, non-home rule municipalities can regulate, but we can't. Typically, we don't have that ability, but we can, because this is a nuisance and it's protect public health, safety, and welfare. And this draft that you're going to see that we're going to walk through was drafted by our staff and the village attorney. There was a couple attorneys working on this. It's very comprehensive. So the first thing we wanted to make sure everybody knew is just because you're a bodywork establishment, when you read the definition of bodywork, it's very general. It's any time that you basically manipulate or work on somebody's body. That automatically makes doctors and chiropractors and all these, having to get this license, but that's not the intent. So what we did is we had to write an exemption section. So here are the common exemptions that you would find under this ordinance. And as you see by the bullet points here, you have your doctor's offices, your athletic trainers, anybody who's licensed by the state to do chiropractics and podiatry and naturopathy, barbers, hospitals, body work, and then people who do it out of their home and not at an actual commercial establishment licensed by the state. There's a process to apply for licenses, and here's just a couple examples of reasons that we might deny a license. And essentially what we're looking for is during that application process. So let's say the board approves their zoning and they're ready to open, and now they need the license. Think of this very similarly to a liquor license. The use might be allowed, but that doesn't mean you don't need an additional license from the village. So once you get your special use, you're ready to open, you apply for the license, we start doing background checks. Once you get to that point, if we see that you have some of these infractions in your history, we have the right to deny it. Now, the right to deny, I'll get to that in a second, is just like the liquor, we have a body works commissioner. So the mayor under this ordinance, just like being liquor commissioner, is now the body works commissioner. He is the sole person that is able to grant the license to one of these businesses. And he's also the person responsible for enforcing the provisions of this ordinance unless he designates somebody else to do so. In working with Attorney Drendel, we looked at a lot of what the city of Batavia does. As obviously Attorney Drundel's office works with the city of Batavia as well. They have a very effective ordinance, as does a few other communities. So we looked at what works for them. And one of the things that we did here, these are provisions that now give the staff or the police department or whoever's designated to do these inspections the ability to go into an establishment and check for these infractions. So you see here, this license requires things like maintaining a log of every employee employed on the premises. Why is that important? Well, it's important because sometimes in these establishments where we're finding that there is criminal activity, it may not necessarily be the licensed massage therapist that's actually conducting the activity. It could be someone who's working in the establishment. They're not necessarily there to be a licensed massage therapist, but they're performing other acts that they shouldn't be. So by having a log of everybody, that means we're able to background check everybody who works there. And then we're able to double check that log and make sure that nobody is working there that shouldn't be on that list that's been verified. So you also have the ability to prohibit people under the age of 18. I believe there's a provision that allows it with adult consent if the adults with them. Things that are important, allowing them not to operate in the middle of the night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. To do things like prohibiting everyone from sleeping overnight. That is a problem in some massage parlors, is that some people might reside there. So now you have that if you have clear evidence when you do your inspection that someone might be living there, that's another red flag. Main entrances has to be unlocked during open hours so that we can have we have access to an unlocked door, not obstructing the windows. And then really important, providing signage indicating when it's open and closed. If it's marked as closed and people are coming in and out, that's a problem. So now this gives us a tool to crack down on these infractions. And when we get these infractions, we can bring them to the Body Works Commissioner to look into fine, suspension, and revocation, which I'll get to in a second. So prohibited acts and the things that we're really trying to prevent are basically things of sexual nature, like prostitution or other similar illegal activities that have basically is why these massage parlor establishments have become a nuisance in the state of Illinois and why we have this type of authority to license them. So as I said earlier, the mayor acts as the bodywork commissioner, and basically what happens is if there's an infraction, the infraction goes to the mayor. The staff says, okay, we witnessed these infractions on this date. And similar to a liquor license infraction, there's a path you can go down. So if the mayor chooses to fine the establishment, the mayor can simply do so by sending it to a regular adjudication process as an ordinance violation. So it goes there, a hearing officer listens, the mayor says, you know, this is a minor infraction. I don't know, they didn't have their certificate in the right place, hung up in the establishment, but I want to fine them $200. So that goes to a hearing, and then the hearing officer hears their case and decides whether that stands or not. The mayor can also take it to a full hearing. And if he does a full hearing, he could do fines, a suspension, or revocation. So for instance, if something more egregious happens there and there's evidence of it, we can go that route. And then you can actually pull the license in addition to fine. You can suspend the license. So like a liquor license, determine how severe the issue was and what the remedy should be. So in this case, an example would be is if you saw something that was like prostitution, the mayor has the right to close the business immediately. If there's evidence, the police department says, oh no, we have evidence, here's what we found. The mayor says, I'm going to close it. He can close it for a few days. I think it's 7 days up front, during which time he can set a hearing date so he can immediately close the establishment. And then upon that hearing can decide whether or not that establishment can reopen or not. What this does too is we added a provision. I think in the police departments, and this isn't just our department's experience, I don't want to make it sound like it's a North Aurora issue, it's throughout the state. One of the issues is whether or not the property owners of the buildings that these establishments operate in are aware of what's actually happening in their establishments. Some might argue that owners may know that one of their businesses in their retail center is operating nefariously, but they don't do anything about it because they're collecting rent and they turn a blind eye and say, oh, I didn't know anything about it. I just, I suspected, I didn't know. So this ordinance also gives us the ability to notify the property owner when we find something of a notice of illegal conduct. And then if we find out that there is illegal conduct there and the owner knew about it and we can prove the owner knew about it, we can also go through a process to go through fines of the owner and find the owner for knowing and allowing it to happen. And one step further, and this is where Kevin comes in, there's an additional lewdness act in the state of Illinois that if it's egregious enough and we can prove the property owner knew about it, we can essentially close his building or business or his building or business for a year as they were complicit in the activity. So that's basically it in a nutshell. We don't have anything like this. We've always said internally that this is the type of business that we would want to regulate, but we've never had the ability to. Now that we feel that we have the ability to go through this, through the nuisance provisions of the non-home rule authorities were given, I think this is something we want to put in place, and we want to ask the board if you have any thoughts about it.
I think it's a great idea. I like the provisions, like all of the different parts you put in there to make sure that we don't have any illegal stuff going on. I don't think nobody in the village wants that, so I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, it looks real thorough. I think you covered a lot of the issues we've discussed over the last year or so, and gives us something that we can, do about. Yes.
I'm in favor. I'm just curious about the word body work. Is that like a legal term? Because it sounds like it's like auto shop. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We need to use that term.
Yeah, it's not really a legal term. The
You see what I'm saying, though? It's like, to me, it's just odd. It's fine. It's just
yeah,
odd.
it is.
It's an odd term.
It is kind of odd. We needed to cover more than massage because people would try to get around. Oh, this wasn't massage; it was something else. And so we tried to come up with a term that was all encompassing, which is why we had to exempt out a lot of categories too, because it was a bigger net than we needed, but it needed to be bigger than just the definition of massage.
Well,
I
I'm in favor anyway.
I'm in favor as well. However, I do have someone over here, either Jason or maybe Todd mentioned maybe considering limiting the number of establishments for the town. Do we want to look at that maybe as well?
I mean, that's up to the board. I mean, right now, I think what we have in place is now everything's a special use, right? So unlike the one that we have currently on 56, that one came in as a prohibited use. I'm sorry, as a permitted use. And because it came in as a permitted use, it's not subject to the same zoning review. Massage Envy may have also come in as a permitted use. Now with a special use, you have to go before the board, you have to make your case. But I think as you saw earlier, about 2 months ago, we had someone petitioning here. The attorney came here, couldn't answer one question the board had about the actual business. And since then, in our communications, has been lacking in their response to us for any time we pressed them for information. So, now to your point, I think limiting it in one way does prohibit a large amount of people coming in. But we also think, given the fact that we only have two, and that you have this licensing provision and they're told up front when they apply for that zoning that this is our Body Works establishment license, you have to abide by this. Our thought would be is if you thought you were going to come into the village and be able to skirt, the 15 different violations that you might inhibit by a simple walkthrough of your building, anybody like Massage Envy is probably going to be like, that's fine, because they're not doing anything that we're worried about. But anybody else who is, to set up a business and then have to be tied down to a license that can be pulled at any minute for violating, I think is also helps prohibit it.
Yeah, and
Really up to the board.
there are some legit like Massage Envy. We don't have any problems with them. That's a regular chain. I wouldn't suspect we'd have problems with them, and we don't want to detour them or someone that does the right thing. So I think the ordinance is fine. I don't think we need to do any more than that.
Is there any sales tax or anything off of those types of businesses at all?
Services.
Nothing.
No. But, if like Massage Envy sold product at all, yes. One thing I didn't mention in here too, which is nice, is this is retroactive to everybody in the community. So this ordinance, whether you're an existing business or a new business, the two existing businesses will have 90 days to apply for this license, and they'll be required to do so. So, and then it's an annual license every year after.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's good.
So the business that the lawyer came in a few months ago, they're not pursuing that any longer. Is that your opinion?
They haven't really followed up in the last few weeks. They started following up after our first meeting. And then when we pressed them for more information, they kind of went quiet. I don't think we've had a real update.
So the last update I got from them, the proprietor who was saying, she's licensed and everything's, well, she's licensed in Wisconsin, not in Illinois. So she was going to go to the state and try to get an Illinois license, and I haven't heard a thing since then.
I have a feeling we'll probably never hear from them again.
Anything else? Good.
No, that's it.
All right. That concludes our discussion. Motion adjourned.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Close the same sign. Have a good night, everyone.